Good morning, everyone. Or I should say good afternoon and good morning for those of you out in Midwest. As Sean shared, my name is Marco Giordano. I am your CEO, and I do thank all of you for joining us this afternoon for our COVID call. Just give me a second here. Let me fix my screen. So, can you believe it? We're just 2 days away from the halfway mark of 2020. It has been such an unusual year this year, very unusual year. And the last 3.5 months dealing with COVID-19 have been different for all of us. Over the weekend, I had an opportunity to take a look at some recent vacation photos and was gladly reminded of different times that occurred not that long ago. And as I looked at the pictures, it definitely gave me hope that there are better times on the other side of this pandemic. Of course, we need to get beyond all the murder bees and locusts and the dust cloud, which, again, pretty incredible. It's been a strange year, strange year. But seriously, as I thought about this morning and thought about the past 3 months, where we are and what's ahead of us, 2 words came to mind: perseverance and commitment. So I went to the internet, Googled a little bit, and came across these couple definitions that I just wanted to share with you. Perseverance is the ability to keep doing something in spite of obstacles. People who persevere shows steadfastness in doing something despite how hard it is and how long it takes to reach a goal. It requires both effort for a task and duration to keep the task up. Perseverance is a strength that helps you to have courage to exercise your will and face adversity. We sometimes use the word stick-to-itiveness to describe perseverance, and yes, stick-to-itiveness is a real word. It's spelled with 2 hyphens. And, you know, I definitely learned something new this morning as I was doing a little homework. The other word that came to mind was commitment. Commitment being a promise to do something or to give something, a promise to be loyal to someone or to something, or an attitude of someone who works really hard to do or support something. Both words came to mind as I thought about our staff, my family, friends, and coworkers during this time. As face masks, social distancing, and other precautions become normal, while things begin to reopen and unfortunately close again, let's not forget the perseverance and commitment necessary to endure this new normal. Our staff have been tirelessly supporting the people we care for while also supporting family, friends, and each other. Thank you for your commitment to the work we do and the people we support. Thank you for so much for your perseverance during this time. Your stick-to-itiveness keeps you, me, each other, our families, and the people we care and support safe and well. No doubt we have heroes that work at RHD, so thank you for all that you do. In March, we created this forum as an opportunity to share information related to our response to the coronavirus. We have shared stories from the field, protocols, guidelines, and more protocols. We have shared opportunities to support each other, as well as resources to take care of yourself. We learned together what PPE is and how to use it. We have also had opportunity to have great conversation and dialogue as a community, sharing thoughts, feelings, and ideas all along the way. Thank you for continuing to participate in these weekly calls. As we think about our path forward, we will be transitioning our weekly calls to bi-weekly. These calls have been beneficial to all of us. However, new information is developing slowly as we continue to embrace and follow the established protocols. And we also want to be mindful of your limited time, your limited critical time. As we continue to work through our reopening plans, which will require continued dialogue with each program. The COVID-19 committee will continue to meet several times a week. We recognize that there is still uncertainty and anxiety regarding the environment we are all are working in, and we are committed to monitoring the needs of our staff, and we will continue to align our meeting frequency all along the way. So our next meeting will be Monday, July 13th at 12:30, and it will go to 2 o'clock. I hope each of you will continue to participate, because your continued commitment and your stick-to-itiveness are needed and appreciated. So thank you. Today we have a brief agenda, a few updates, and we will also be creating space for some conversation where hopefully folks will share, will listen and understand together, and also answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will pass the mic to Sean. And again, I thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Marco. As Marco mentioned, we have a change in our format today. We're going to have an opportunity for individuals to share with us later today just their thoughts, their experiences, and observations as it relates to the many facets of COVID-19. As a friendly reminder, we've changed our format and how we best engage with our workforce. So you will have noticed that all lines are open and it's an open call. We've asked that you would keep your lines muted. We will manage that on our end as well. And then during the open forum, as well as the Q&A, we will move to the process of having the lines open so that individuals can unmute themselves to speak and participate. As a friendly reminder, I'd also like to share with you the process for the Q&A, which will also take place later today within our call. Right now, I'm going to share my screen so that you can have information as it relates to that very process. At this point, you should be able to see my screen projected on the process for submitting questions. Your options are as follows. During the Q&A, you can do your voice. The link is presented there, and you can submit your questions through that format. You can also submit questions through the COVID-19 inbox, and the address is listed there as well. We will also take questions through the Zoom chat feature. And the way that that will work is if you were to raise your, or through the Zoom chat, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Through the Zoom chat, you can type in a question in the chat. We will receive that question and impose that question. And then the corresponding leadership will respond to your question. And then also within this feature, we can have a raised hand, where if you look at participants, you can select the icon for raised hand, and then that will indicate that you'd like to pose a question, and we will field your question. We will also manage the raised hand process during the open forum. And again, the open forum is slightly different than the Q&A in that we just want to hear from you as to your experiences and observations as it relates to COVID-19 and all the myriad changes that have occurred. Some of those things that were highlighted in Marco's introduction. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll now pass it to Linda, who will give us an update on hazard pay. Linda?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. I wanted to just provide a brief update on hazard pay. The processing of hazard pay has been going pretty well. Each time that there is an occurrence, the program director, financial manager, service line director, or regional director are getting together to talk through when does hazard pay apply. And that process and that system seems to be going very well. I just wanted to let people know hazard pay will be extended through July 31st. And as it gets closer again to the end of July, we'll do, what we've been doing each month is really evaluate at that time. So again, keep with the process. For those situations where it gets a little more complicated, you can reach out to Brandon or myself at any time to talk through the details of hazard pay. But thank you very much for all of your efforts on continuing to move that forward. And now I will turn it over to Brian, who will do case updates.
Great. Thank you, Linda. I'm going to share my screen for a moment, and just so that we can all see this. So what we're looking at right now is just a bar graph, just kind of showing the reports and how we've received them. And what this is showing is that we saw a drop in the number of reports in early May. We know there was a spike in the beginning of May, then we saw that drop off. So then what we're looking at is there was a slight uptick at the end of May as well. And then, through June, it looked like it was pretty steady and it plateaued a bit. And then over the past week, we've really seen a significant spike again in the number of reports. And we've also seen that of the reports that we've received in June, that we've seen more confirmed cases of the virus. So for our totals through, this event, we've seen that there's been 252 confirmed cases of COVID. 247 of our reports have been negative. 95 have been suspected, which means that somebody has produced symptoms of COVID-19. And then there's been 80 reports of possible exposure to somebody with positive COVID. And we continue to work to go through those suspected cases and possible exposures to really make sure that we're recording them correctly to see if they've been confirmed or if they've been tested as negative. And we've also seen 7 fatalities of COVID-19 as well. So what does this mean? So it really means that we need to be still practicing good hand hygiene, cleaning and sanitizing, social distancing, and wearing the appropriate PPE to protect ourselves and others. So that's all I have. So right now I'm going to throw it back to Sean Mott. Sean?
Great. Thank you, Brian. And thank you, Linda, both. And Brian, if you're concluded, yes, thank you. We're thinking alike there. So that concludes the formal agenda that we had in place as it relates to updates. We're going to now shift to the open forum. And just to talk briefly about the purpose of the open forum. We as an organization, as well as individuals, have gone through a variety of emotions and experiences as it relates to COVID-19. This has been a pandemic that has been overwhelming at best in forcing us to think differently, act differently, work differently. The purpose of this open forum is just a chance for you to have an opportunity to share where you are, to talk about your experiences, your thoughts as it relates to work, your thoughts outside of work. We provided this weekly forum to provide information. Here's a chance to hear from you. The intention is not to necessarily do questions and answers at this point, but just to learn from you. How will we plan to use this information and what we're learning in this call today is future planning. We're confident that through the sharing today, we'll hear sentiment as it relates to emotions or feelings or observations that will help leadership within the organization to plan moving forward. So we trust that you will feel comfortable in sharing your observations and thoughts. There are no right or wrong answers as it relates to what you're sharing. It's just an opportunity to talk about where you are, and then hopefully we can continue to learn as an organization as to what our employees are experiencing. The way we'll attempt to manage this process is through the raised hand format. So if you look at the icons at the bottom of the screen, you'll see an icon for security, participants, chat. If you click on the icon for participants, there is an option for you to do a raised hand. And I think I might have misspoken because I clicked it on and it's not showing. And you're also hearing me speak out live and in person. So you're probably thinking, okay, does this man know what he's talking about? Alrighty. I guess it would help. All right, so let's do it this way then. Actually, well, you know what? So Sarah needs the, I'm just gonna look at this. I see someone who said that they see it. So perfect. And I actually got a raised hand process. So apparently I must have did something correctly because I talked partially, or there's more smart people out there, that's what it is, and hands are raised. So at this point, we'll go ahead and have individuals speak based on the order in which people have raised their hands, and look forward to hearing from what you have to say. So we'll start with Kristen, and it appears that your hand is raised. So if you want to go ahead and unmute your line, you can go ahead and speak.
Hello. No, I was actually just raising my hand to show that I could, in fact, raise my hand. But now that you mention it, let me turn on my camera on so people can actually see me. No, to be frank, I'm grateful to be a part of an organization that is generally so caring, not just about the employee and the staff, but just very conscientious. And that shows through, like, by these the public forums that we have on a weekly basis, just a chance to speak, and also the fact that higher levels of management take suggestions very seriously from all levels of staff. I'm glad to be a part of this organization. That's really all I want to say.
Christian, thank you for that feedback. I see that also Aquanetta raised her hand. Aquanetta, you can go ahead and share your thoughts.
I know. I was just raising my hand to let you know that I could raise my hand. I was just letting you know that it was there. Hi, everybody.
I appreciate that thought. And hello,
All right.
Aquanetta.
Okay.
And it appears that Sandra has raised her hand. Was that an intentional, or were you also supporting the process and how it works? And it looks as if the hand had been lowered, so I think that might have been just a test.
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Yes.
I did raise my hand. Hi, Sean. It's Sandy. Hi,
Hey,
everybody.
Sandy.
It's Sandy. Hi, it's Sandy. I just want to thank everybody. At this point, this has been a wild ride on many, 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 many levels, and I just want to thank everybody. The staff of RHD. It's just been emotional for a lot of us, and and just hats off to all the staff that continue to come and who continue to support us. I mean, it's just been, we couldn't have done any of this without all of you. And I think I'm going to put in a plug from the PPE standpoint. It's summer, it's beautiful outside, the weather's wonderful, and we want to get out and do stuff, and we want to be with our family and friends, and so do the folks we provide services for. I'm asking people to please continue to be careful and to wear the masks and wear the PPE, because it's just essential. I just looked at Brian, the presentation that he just made. I see there's a spike. I want to see that spike go down, and we're able to do it because we see the numbers. So let's not, let's still be vigilant out there and try our best to have fun and to enjoy the weather, but to stay safe and be with our families and friends. So again, I just want to thank everybody, all of the staff at RHD. We really came together when we were needed. And so, as Marco always says, and all the rest of us always say, together we're better. Thank you.
And thank you, Sandy. Other thoughts or comments or observations? This is an opportunity for sharing. We just want to hear from you as to where you are right now, what your thoughts are about COVID-19 and its impact on our workforce, its impact on our country and the world, actually, as well. I see that there is a hand raise, and it's Small. It's the last name? Palestine?
Hello?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you, yes.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to, someone said something about a spike in numbers, and I wanted to know if you feel like it was due to just because the weather is warmer outside, or are we expecting another spike in numbers once flu season hit? And if so, should we continue to stock up on PPE, or I know I heard someone say that we should continue to use it, but should we continue to stock up on it if they feel like we're getting a spike now and we're going to get one when flu season hits?
Thank you for your question. Sandy, is that a question you can respond to regarding the spike, as well as Brian, as well as PPS? Yes.
It's a June, I think it's a June question.
Mm-hmm.
So June, can you chime in?
Yeah, I'm muted. There we go.
You're
Yeah,
unmuted.
Yeah, so exactly, the weather has been warm. People have gotten together. I know you can drive down Kelly Drive and see people. It's great. They're having picnics and parties and everything, but they're not wearing masks and they're not socially distancing. So I do believe that that spike is related to people, you know, we're going into the green phase. It doesn't mean that it's back to normal. It's the new normal. And that means that our activity is much less restricted as it was earlier when we first had COVID coming into our communities. But it still means that we have to apply the same safeguards. Brian mentioned that frequent cleaning, good hygiene, washing the hands, using hand sanitizer, wearing the mask, social distancing, please, please, please. And just being careful about how you're conducting yourself. And it is hard because we say, oh, go ahead, do this, do that. And your inclination is, whoa, it can just, you know, be back to normal. But it is the new normal, and it is a definite one that we want to still have the same safeguards and protocols in place.
Thank you, June.
Sean, I think there was another part of the question relating to the use of PPE and the need to stock up on PPE.
Yeah, we have recommended, we did send a piece out already to other program directors. We did recommend, and again, it just seems kind of like, wow, we're in green phase. Why are we stocking up? Well, as you can see, the numbers are going to increase. In the states, there are 9 states where they prematurely opened and relaxed all restrictions. They are now having severe issues, and they're having to go backwards. Unfortunately, once that stage happens where you go beyond what you could really have normally handled, it's hard to turn back. So that they are experiencing shortages of PPE in those areas, in those regions. So we want to make sure that we're recommending a 3-month supply of PPE. And the PPE task force, our committee, is also gathering a 3-month emergency supply here for those people who might experience shortages in those regions where there are outbreaks now of COVID.
Great. Thank you, June.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie, I noticed that you had raised your hand. Did you have a comment, or would you like to share?
Yes, just to follow up on June and Sandy's point, there's currently a study out of the University of Iowa that says in the states that enacted requirements for mask usage in April and May, the estimate is that between 230,000 and 450,000 COVID-19 cases were prevented. The estimate goes on to say that between now and October 1st, if 95% of Americans wear masks, the projection of how many folks will have died from COVID decreases by 33,000 people. Just trying to hammer the point home that, again, I get the temptation to be outside, but the masks really are effective, and we do need to stock up.
Thank you for that additional data point, Bernie. And we're still open for an open forum. So any other thoughts about what's currently going on? Anything you'd like to share? Any of your observations, the feelings that you have? Teron Williams, I see that your hand is raised. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, everyone. And I just wanted to thank everyone. Prior to this pandemic, we were also engulfed in our work that, you know, we didn't spend the time that we've been spending together before this pandemic hit. I mean, a lot of it is because we're now all on the same playing field. But I do think that I've seen a sense of unity. I've received phone calls from folks asking how I'm doing. I've reached out to people asking how they're doing. And in most of our meetings at the end, we're checking in on each other. So I do think that once we get back to whatever new sense of normalcy that we have, once this is over, we got to remember those things and continue to check in with each other. Thank you.
Teron, thank you for that observation and thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts or observations? So seeing that there are no additional thoughts or observations, I want to thank you for those that did share and kind of express their observations and their thoughts. I see that Brittany has a raised hand. Brittany?
Brittany, you're unmuted.
Yes.
Sorry, I was double muted. There was a question in the chat. Someone asked, how close are we to reopening 4700 as we move into green phase?
And I'm thinking that's perhaps a Shayna question that you could provide some insight on as it relates to just the planning and the processing and the discussions that are occurring as it relates to reopening 4700. Shayna, are you available to respond?
Yeah, I couldn't unmute.
Also.
As far as 4700 with Hicken goes, there's still a lot of reviewing and assessing the individual departments' readiness to return, along with the overall plan for the entire building and workplace safety preparation. So we can't put a definite time frame on it right now, but we are working to at least come up with some expectations to share with the management at the office.
Thank you, Shayna. And it appears that we're shifting slightly. So we're moving into the question and answer period, which is fine. So just as a friendly reminder for question and answers, we have a few ways in which we field questions. You can, of course, raise your hand through the chat feature. Yes, raise your hand. You can also submit a question through chat. And we also have the your voice that we've been collecting questions through, as well as the COVID email address. So I will look back to my colleague, Brittany, to see if there is additional questions that have come through chat. And I'll also look to my colleague, Sarah, to see if she's filled in any questions within this call. And as a friendly reminder, the two topics that we covered today, Brian provided an update on cases, and then Linda provided an update as it related to hazard pay. In addition to that, in Marco's opening, he mentioned our shift in the process and format and the times that we will meet during this call as well as some of his insights. So the floor is now open for questions regarding this call or questions regarding COVID-19. And I'll look to Brittany to see if there were any additional questions that came through chat.
I don't see anything else in the chat at this point.
Great. Thank you for checking. And then Sarah, did we receive any questions through the other mediums?
We did. The first is, will RHD be soliciting guidance from a physician or ophthalmologist before implementing policies and procedures for increasing consumers' community activities?
It sounds like that might sit in the June camp as it relates to questions. June, is that a question you can answer?
Can you repeat for me, please?
Sure. And Sarah, if you can repeat the question for June.
Yeah, I'm pulling it back up.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Will RHD be soliciting guidance from a physician or ophthalmologist before implementing policies and procedures for increasing consumers' community activities?
Okay, I'm not too sure about an ophthalmologist, but
Ophthalmologist?
I would assume that the ISP plans for consumers would have recommendations. We have used our clinical group, DSIC, to work with programs to modify plans so that they conform to the CDC and OSHA regulations for whatever the activities are that are need to take place. Right now, I know that we were struggling with some visitor protocols. We're still, as I said, in the green phase, still in restricted state of activity, in that when people visit the programs, they have to wear masks, they have to answer the questions. And so activities would still have to be done with masks in limited numbers. And we would probably have to have a discussion that would be specific to the activity that people want to engage in. I can certainly weigh in on any specific one, but as a general rule, they still have to conform to all the protocols that we have currently in place.
Right. Thank you, June. And understanding there was a program element to this question, Brandon, Linda, would you like to also supplement what June has shared?
Yeah, the plans for opening up are really program specific. So even if an area says, you know, if the state or county says we are open, that particular program may have reasons not yet to move ahead with a full reopening program. So that's something that we have really tried to reinforce from the beginning, that we're going to look sort of case by case and work with the local region and the needs of the individual participants at each program.
Thank you, Linda. Sarah, were there additional questions that you fielded?
Yes. So given the apparent resurgence of COVID-19 cases across the US, would it be wise to rethink the plans for reopening offices? I think this could go to Shayna or even Linda or Brandon.
I'll jump in. Again, I think that the plans were really to get ready for when we open. You know, so all of that work, that assessment, was to create the plan for when it was the right time, to make sure we had thought through everything. The PPE, visitors policies, do we need sneeze guards, all sorts of things that would go into that. But all of those plans were always built with the need to adapt as needed. So even if we're ready in an area and we start to open or take steps to open, because for most programs, it's not an all or nothing, that there's really steps to that. If the tide starts to turn, we would rethink it and move back. That, you know, we are always trying to be as responsive as possible to the needs of that immediate area. So I just want to just make sure if there's, for Shayna or Brandon, if you wanted to add anything else to that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. I was thinking that we are. I mean, the answer to the question is we are continually revisiting each of those plans. So I appreciate the question, and know that we're taking that, again, as Linda said, and Shana said earlier, kind of on a case by case, and we will have to reevaluate. I think, you know, the one thing that's important is that we remain flexible, and we know that things could change. And the moment that we see we need to move a different direction, we need to be willing to reassess, reevaluate, and do that. So hear us that we're being cautious. We need you to be cautious along with us and be willing to reevaluate if necessary. So we appreciate your patience and appreciate your flexibility.
And I just wanted to add one other piece when it comes to the review of the plans from the council. They're reviewing and they're assisting in the step to prepare for reopening. The actual decision on when a program or a workplace site will reopen, that's up to the program leadership, and divisional leadership. So it's not just, you know, one person kind of deciding the when and where of it all. And that should be a continual conversation with the team based on, you know, what's going on, spikes, CDC guidelines, recommendations, and all.
Thank you, Shana, Brandon, and Linda. Sarah, did we receive additional questions?
We did. We have one more.
Mm-hmm.
So the staff person says, I'm wondering if you could help me understand why employees at RHD in Philadelphia are not required to wear masks at work. We have many agency fill-ins as well as staff that travel a lot and could easily bring in COVID to our facility.
Okay, well, I can address that. The masks are required. So, and if they don't have masks, we certainly need to have them ordered and have them worn. So that would be something to check with the supervisor at the program and program director to see why they don't have appropriate PPE. And that means a mask worn, even if there isn't an active case of COVID.
Thank you, June. Alicia, I see that you have your hand raised. You want to go ahead and unmute and speak? And Sarah, if you can unmute.
There you go.
Alicia, awesome, thank you.
Got her.
I think that the question was about shared services not wearing masks. I heard Philadelphia, staff in Philadelphia not wearing masks. Sarah, I don't know if you can clarify.
I think it was a Philadelphia-based program.
Oh, program, okay, yeah. All right.
I'm going to check in with Brittany as well to see if we received any additional questions in chat.
I actually have one. No, I'm good.
Okay, I did want to just recap a question that was answered in the chat, but just in case others didn't see it. The question was, is there an RHD leader assigned to each state to give us the info by state so that all programs for that state are on the same page so that we can all move forward safely in the same way? And the question was answered by Stephanie, and she stated that all service line directors, regional directors, and CPOs are tuned into what the states are doing and the various statuses.
Brittany, thank you for sharing that question and response publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Additional questions from our workforce?
Alicia, I believe you raised your hand again. No? Okay. We do have a question in the chat that was sent to me privately, and a staff member is concerned about interfacing one-on-one with clients who are not wearing masks even when they're asked to, and how can that be handled? And then a separate question about seeing other staff not wearing masks, or I guess that masks are not being enforced. How do we handle that?
And to tease that apart, I think if we can hear from Brandon and or Linda regarding the program dynamic as far as masks, and then if we can shift to, I guess from a policy perspective, perhaps Alicia or June as it relates to what the expectation would be regarding a staff person not wearing a mask. So we'll start with Brandon and Linda.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think the important thing for us is to model as leaders that we're modeling the behavior and we're modeling the policies, right? So we want to make sure that if we're up and about the office, obviously when you're sitting at your desk or you're on a conference call, you're not wearing your mask at this point in time. You can see folks here that are in office scenarios that aren't doing that. It's because we're not up and about, right? So we want to be clear that there's a difference when you're up and moving about and around other folks. So I think number one, model the behavior yourself as leaders. If you see a leader that's not doing that, I would encourage you to respectfully and privately talk to them about it. Ask the question, is there a change in policy that I'm not aware of? And could you help me with that? Can you help me understand? Because I want to make sure that I'm following the policies, right? So I think it's okay to ask. Also your peers, you know, I think again, respect is important, right? To do it appropriately. But we as peers of each other and working together and obviously trying to keep people safe, we need to be able to say to our peers, hey, don't forget, we're supposed to be wearing our masks. So just help people out as a gentle reminder to say, let's work together to keep both ourselves safe as staff, keep our consumers safe, and we'll make sure that we don't spread this and have our numbers tick up again. So work together. I think that's the best thing to do. If you have a pattern behavior of that in an individual, the supervisor needs to be made aware. If the supervisor is aware and you feel like nothing's being done, then I would encourage you to, to work through that with the supervisor, possibly escalate that to the next level if you feel like it's being ignored, because safety is job number one for every one of us, and we're all responsible for ensuring that we protect each other.
Thanks, Brandon. I couldn't have said it better. I am sitting at my desk at Shared Services, but there is nobody here. And when I get up, I go to the bathroom, I put my mask on, and as I walk by other people.
One other thing that I would add to what Brandon had said is that there are participants that have sensitivity issues, that it's very uncomfortable for them, or they may be unwilling or understanding why they need to wear a mask. So I just wanted to share, and we can send it out again tonight, that Leah Forrest on the DSIC team has shared multiple times tips for helping people to get more comfortable, our participants wearing masks if they're not. It might be the type of material we're using it for extended period of times to help them get used to it. So there's things that we can do, and we know that it is a struggle for some people. And we can absolutely share that out again today. It was some really good information.
And Sean, I just wanted to provide perhaps some recommendations. If we have looked at it clinically and we've tried the various materials, as Linda just suggested, and we simply have a consumer that will not be able to tolerate the mask, it would be my recommendation that you obtain the higher level of PPE. If you recall, some time ago, we went through the various stages with the cloth or paper mask being just the lower level that provides protection to others we work around. If you are working with a consumer who cannot wear a mask, I would ask that you be protected with the higher grade surgical mask, a 3-ply mask, or the N95 mask. And if your program does not have those supplies, please reach out so that we can make sure that you get those supplies.
Thank you, Stephanie, Brandon, and Linda. I see that Sandy, you raised your hand. You want to go ahead and speak?
Yes. Also, on piggybacking on what Stephanie just said, and we also have the shields too, the plastic guards. And so if folks need that, also let us know.
And thank you, Sandy. And doing one more check-in, Sarah, Brittany, any additional questions that may have come in?
One more for me. I have a staff member asking what to do or who to go to if they're not getting adequate information from their unit director about reopening.
I would definitely encourage you to reach out to the regional director or the service line director for additional information if your program director you feel is not providing you that information. If you haven't reached out to the program director directly to ask, then please do that first. But if you feel like that either you're not getting a full picture or that person is not being responsive to you, then again, please bump it up to the regional director and or the service line director, and they should be able to address it. At any time, I know Linda and I and Emily will also field questions, and we're wanting to do that to make sure everybody's safe and on the same page. So at any time, you could also reach out directly to any of us as well.
Thank you, Brandon. Any additional questions?
Yep, I think we just had one more, and this was, again, this is a recap of something that was already responded to in the chat box, but the question is, will the seating arrangement stay the same in the central office, or will this be arranged once the office opens? And Shana responded and stated that risk management and the property team members are working on a list of recommendations to follow the CDC guidelines around 6 feet social distancing.
Thank you, Brittany. Any additional questions this time?
None from me.
I'm just going to allow for anyone else that might have any additional questions or thoughts before we conclude. I want to thank everyone for their participation today. I'm about to hand it back to Marco, who will provide us with our closing remarks. As a friendly reminder, we will have our next town hall meeting on July 13th, as Marco had mentioned. Between now and that time, do continue to submit your questions, as well as your thoughts or observations as it relates to our reopening as an organization. We can never have too many good ideas, so keep them coming, and also let your concerns be heard, so that can help to inform the decision-making process as well. I want to thank you for our participants today who provided information, and I want to thank you for your questions as well as your observations and your sharing. I'd like to pass it back to Marco, who will give us our closing remarks.
Thanks, Sean, and again, thank you, Sean, for your thorough on-target facilitation of this call on a weekly basis. Really appreciate all that you're doing and all that our COVID committee, you all know who you are, all that you're doing to keep this process moving forward for our organization, for our staff. So really appreciate all that everyone is doing during this time. If one of the things that I'll share, and I'm certain you heard, that was common throughout our conversation today, and that is the need for us to continue to be cautious and compliant with our safety protocols, with wearing masks, with social distancing, continuous cleaning, as well as hand washing. That's how we will continue to keep each other safe and well as we work through this, continue to work through this together. As June said, really embracing our new normal. So again, I ask that we all continue to do that. And I ask, as we do that, that we remember who we are as an organization and what we are grounded in. Our core value of respect. Respect for human dignity and worth of each of us. And that also comes with the need to question. And when we feel like we are not working in a way that is respectful of each of our well-being, to question that. And to raise that question, as Brandon said, as directly with the individual that in the individual that you're in conflict or in connected with, so that way it can get resolved as directly as possible, but always know that you have another opportunity, many opportunities to get issues and conflicts resolved. So continue to question, continue to respect, continue to wear PPE, use PPE to keep each other safe and well. And with that, again, I want to thank everyone for all that you're doing during this time. Join us again on the 13th of July at 12 o'clock. And I wish everyone a happy 4th as we move towards the end of this week. Thank you, everyone.